Well done. Acompanha Perkons que entra. And Riga
Welcome to the Latvian Football Podcast. In this episode, we are going to look back at the first lap and discuss what's happening in and around Virsliga 2023. Some of the noteworthy things that might have occurred since we last spoke was, well, one, there's continued speculation about the Baltic League, which is an interesting initiative that I'm very curious what you think about. Teams have been moving to grass pitches. There's been a first change in coaching staff among the Virsliga teams, and it's not who we thought it might be. And of course, 10 games have been played since we last met, and some of them were as one would expect, and others were rather surprising. So, yeah, let's get going. Do you want to start with kind of the more general news items?
Yeah, let's do that. And do we start with this? Talks about the potential Baltic League?
Yeah, well, I guess let's say what it is. So Baltic League is this idea that because the populations of the three Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, only together amount to about 5 million, then our domestic football leagues are really handicapped by the size of our countries. And so by uniting the championships of the three states, there is potential to increase competition, to increase avenues for revenue generation through sponsors and selling TV rights and whatnot, and thus kind of elevate the game of football in the region. In fact, it's seen by some as the only way to take this next step in quality for the three domestic championships. This isn't the first it's come up. In fact, it has happened previously once. I think 2 seasons were played, but it was kind of more of a friendly-ish type of a tournament, and it was rife with corruption and other unpleasantries, and it just fizzled out.
I think it was also a cup competition as well, not really a league. It was called Baltic League, but I think it was a cup competition, wasn't it?
I'm genuinely unsure. It was a while back. I just know that no one took it seriously.
I remember there were quarterfinals. For some reason, I remember Liepaja playing against, I think it was Ekranas from Lithuania. For some reason, I remember something like that. And yeah, I think it was a cup competition. So yeah, just weird one. Yeah.
Well, the idea of Maxim Skrivenets, who is the head of the Virsliga, is to make it into an actual league with teams from the three countries competing against one another as they do domestically in their national competitions right now. And he is dead set on making it happen. He's a great advocate of the idea. But what do you think of it?
First of all, it just all seems a bit too complicated. I know it's not actually that complicated, but when I think of it, it just seems a bit weird, and there's potential flaws. And if it is complicated, and that's the first thing that comes to mind, I think it's natural to not really be supportive of it. I like the idea of competing against different teams than usual, against the best teams, against the Baltics, because it's always quite hard to compare, because I'd like to think Virsliga is the best one, and that our best teams are better than Lithuania's and Estonia's best teams, but we can't be too short because they've also shown good results, especially from Lithuania. It's Vilnius Žalgiris, and from Estonia, what was the team?
Flora is a good one.
Yeah, Flora. Yeah, they also played in the Conference League, and yeah, so they also must be good. And it's in that sense, it would be interesting to sort of compare. And also, there's quite some players usually traveling between the leagues, and in that sense, it would be interesting. But on the other side, it's a 30-team league, which is already quite ridiculous. Then even some easy things like if a Lithuanian team goes to Estonia, there's going to be no away supporters, and it's going to be really hard to travel and everything. I know it's like the next step, and there's bigger money involved and everything. But at the same time, it seems a bit pointless because it's only a rivalry between themselves, but the idea is that the European quotas are still the same for each country. So even if the best Latvian team finishes like 20th in the whole competition, they still well, like the fourth best Latvian team, for example, finished 20th, which is very low. They still go through to the Conference League qualifications, that seems a bit pointless. And also the fact that how will the relegations really work? Because I think the idea was that 5 or 6 teams go off to the playoffs, and then the bottom 4 or 5 go to their own playoffs. But it just all seems, I don't know. It's a weird one. I see the appeal, but I really like Krivonets. I think he's a very a good person to be in charge of Virsliga, sort of more innovative and taking more modern approaches and closing some deals with TV partners from other countries, etc. But I think this one is just a bit too ambitious, and I don't know if it makes the full complete sense.
Well, yeah, it's kind of, so this new iteration, and why we're talking about it in the first place, is because he is now talking to Lithuanians and this Hypercube sports innovation consultancy that is UEFA strategic partner. So they're gonna try to figure out if there is a way to get around these difficulties. But it seems that the idea is not to have a 30-team league just as a straight up competition, but rather have this. I know they play this way in Denmark, where it's like a 2-stage tournament that first you play and in regular format a couple of laps, and then the top teams splinter off, and then the bottom teams have their own like little playoff thing. That's kind of where I lose track of what the idea is supposed to be. What happens to these bottom teams? It's kind of clear what happens to top teams. I think the idea with European qualifiers is actually to make them contingent on the accomplishments in this league. And I think that's the main issue that they're trying to solve. So what if it's just Estonian and Lithuanian teams, which is a highly unlikely scenario, but let's entertain it for hypothesis sake, take up the top of the table. Then what? No Latvian teams get their European qualifiers, and that seems to be the way that they're trying to go, which is very difficult to figure out because of the way UEFA is set up. But beyond that, I mean, I really agree with many of the things you said, like with fans. Like, would I really care to travel to Tallinn or Vilnius or wherever to watch an RFS game, for example? And I don't know if the answer is necessarily yes. I would go here, that's for sure, but that's on one hand. But on the other hand, it's really not that far. The Baltic states, Latvia is larger than Denmark. Together they kind of amount to a mid-sized country, but people travel further for football in places that are larger all the time. You don't have borders anymore, so who cares? You just hop on a bus or on a train and you go to Vilnius, Tallinn, to Kaunas, wherever. But then again, I don't know. It seems like even though the competitions are not that old, relatively speaking, they seem to have developed independently, and there's not a lot of overlap. We don't know. Well, I think that's my hunch anyway, that we don't really know much about the Estonian league or the Lithuanian league other than a couple of big names, and I would venture a guess that it goes the other direction as well. How many fans of Estonian or Lithuanian football can name teams that are not Riga FC and maybe Liepaja or something?
I mean, yeah, it's easy theoretically to travel, but if the game is like on a Thursday, I don't know, 6 o'clock, people have work commitments and everything, and it's still, even in Latvian borders, teams don't, well, supporters rarely go to away days. Of course, in Riga, like if a Riga team plays against a Riga team, it's easier, but don't think you really see any Liepaja fans in Daugavpils. On the other hand, it's okay. It's not the best comparison because a lot of Lithuanian teams would be closer to Liepaja than Daugavpils, but no, still, it's not really. now, just people are still not that into football and already taking it beyond just the one country borders. I don't know if it's worth it in that sense. And yeah, I just don't, if it really is like if their idea stays as in all the countries still get their quotas despite where they finish in the table, then yeah, it's
Well, then what's the point, right?
I don't yeah kind of yeah, because okay, we know ourselves which the best teams in Baltics are, but it doesn't really make international sense because it's only like for us for their pride, but I don't know if they really care about it. I think it would be better to just make an I don't know middle of season or pre-season tournament where the champions of each country play each other or something like that just to battle it out. But I know, but of course that would not make sense because the whole idea is to really bring the league to the new, like a new level and make it bigger and everything. And yeah, I just don't know if we're there yet. I think it's a potential for future, but I don't know. And then there's also the fact that it's only the highest league. Then it would make sense to make all the bottom leagues as well, like all the Baltics, because how do you play sort of relegations, promotions? Okay, on the other hand, I know the idea is that the leagues still play the first two laps only between themselves and then go off. And that's also a bit, I don't know, just also seems illogical. It's a bit disruptive. Like you follow only your country's league and then suddenly they merge and
It's strange. It's almost like you're creating a league on top rather than merging the existing championships. That you have your domestic league, and then suddenly halfway through the season, half of the teams splinter off into this Baltic Champions League kind of a thing, and then what, you don't see them again, and then you just have the the losers league. I can definitely see it being called that way, or just people losing interest in that top tournament and following the local teams, and then yeah. So you think kind of a fan culture is not really there to support competition like that?
yeah, it's definitely getting better by years, but I just yeah, I don't think it's really there yet because I think people would lose interest, but of course not all of them, but those who are still sort of on the verge of deciding whether they are really into football or not. Because I know now that we're talking about this, I know that if it's so confusing and it doesn't really make sense in my head, I'm not really in support of this. But if it does happen, I would still be interested to see how it works out, and I would follow it. But we're sort of bigger fans than I'd say average people who follow the leagues, and I don't know if the average fan is there yet to really be into it and commit to some travels and stuff. So
Well, I would even venture to say that we don't really have a fan culture in the same sense as there exists one in Britain, Italy, France, Spain, those places. That if you go to a game here, you're likely to see lots of families with children, for example. There's people just hanging out. Football is something I think maybe closer to like a concert kind of an event for people here, rather than this this thing that you live and die for, that if your team loses, you just the world comes to an end, and that kind of, the people like that exist, and we do have that kind of culture with hockey, although also not on a domestic competition level.
No, not really.
So maybe it's just generally not here for whatever reason, but we don't have these ultras and hooligan legacy that would kind of invoke those emotions that would maybe motivate someone to travel to Lithuania or Estonia every other week. And then I'm a bit concerned about what happens with the development of those bottom teams. Isn't this then just a great recipe to create a separation between the 5 richest clubs in each of the nations and then the up-and-comers? that if you literally split them halfway through the competition, and then, you go play with the best, and then you guys stay here and do what you do, how does that affect player and club development, especially given that our competitions are in fairly early stages of their lifespan, comparatively speaking? What I feel like there might be a significant negative effect there as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with that as well. It sort of just stops the progression of the smaller teams, and it's also not really a fan in general of this sort of system that all the teams play, and then they sort of break into two parts, because I think that's the beauty of football, that the bottom team can still be the top team later on in the season, which can make a whole difference in the table and everything. And I just think that's what makes football, especially at this early stage, so good, because, well, there's so many things can happen, and these games are still interesting sometimes when the smaller teams play against the big teams, and it's just more variation and more fresh, because if it was always just the best teams playing each other, it would get sort of, well, not boring, but just would be missing something. This sort of I don't know how to even call it, this flair, this sort of different emotion and feeling that the smaller teams give. For example, Tukums, it's just they will not reach top 5, but this can still play really good against the big teams, and then there's so many interesting players to see, and they need to be tested against the best teams as well. And yeah, that's where it just doesn't make sense, at least yet.
Yeah, like the nerve-wracking feeling that you get when a couple of games to the end of the season and a close title race, and then some team from the bottom takes points away from the leader or the follower, and then that would be not really applicable. But either way, their thinking on this is going ahead. Probably will be this conceptual investigation of how this could work, but I guess observing with interest, but not necessarily all up for anything like that to take place in any time in the near future.
Yeah, it just has to make sense. Then it has to be simple. Because even now thinking, like, it's hard to really grasp who then really goes up, who goes down, about the quotas, everything. It's just too complicated, and it shouldn't be like that in football. It's simple. It just
and then there's the question of what to play for. What do clubs get to take away from this? I know that the Virsliga clubs, they did give mandate to Krivonets to pursue this idea, but is there a big pot of money at the top of this Baltic League that could really make a difference? It's not clear if there is, or where would it come from.
Yeah, so we can, I guess, then move on to the next topic, a big topic regarding just Virsliga now, and it's about the first coach to not be let go, but leave his duty as the head coach of the team. And it was a very surprising and an unexpected one, and I have to say, for me, a very devastating one. It just actually made me a bit sad. It's Perkons, the head coach of Jelgava, the newly promoted team, but in no sense the worst team. They've started really good, surprisingly, with playing basically with just youngsters, and one very experienced player and a couple bit more experienced players, but still a very young team, very interesting. A team that's been rising from the bottom of the pyramid from the 2016, and it's always been just these players, this one coach. They've all grown together, and suddenly turns out that, behind the scenes, it's not all paradise as it would seem from outside. And unfortunately, Coach Perkons had to resign, basically because of bad relationship with the
club ownership,
higher
basically.
Hours of the team, the ownership, and that really frustrates me. I could go on a tangent here, but just as I understand, I listened to there was an interview with him released today by Edmunds Novickis, journalist, and didn't manage to listen to the whole of it, but I think heard the first 10 minutes. And basically, the idea is that he was just not appreciated by the ownership, well, specifically the owner of the team, Māris Pēlāns, which to me is just I don't understand how is that possible.
Well, I was shocked as well. I was ready for a coach change, and I have predicted on this podcast who is going to be, and it wasn't this person. Instead, it was Perkons, who, as you said, he took the Jelgava squad from their early teens into the Virsliga, which is a very noteworthy accomplishment. The way he prepared for games was unusual for Virsliga. Instead of kind of playing the same or two different formations, it seemed that Jelgava was very much tailoring their approach to each of their opponents, so you could see or at least you could guess the amount of analytical quantitative work going into preparing for each game. So you can see that the guy he's young. I think he's younger than me even. So
32.
Yeah. So he's young, he is hungry for this, he's passionate about it, and then he just very casually during a press conference, when the reporter asked him about how is Jelgava going to prepare for next game, he just said, well, I don't know, because I'm not going to be in charge anymore. And that was a bit of a minor bombshell. But as you said, it really, you said you didn't watch the whole interview, but really you don't need to. I think 15 minutes will suffice. In fact, it comes down to a toxic relationship with the ownership of, obviously we don't know the other side yet. Nowitzki's promised to get an interview from the other side as well, but it just seems that either he felt unappreciated, he did not like the attitude, and more importantly, that this is something that's been ongoing for a number of years now. So it's not just now, but it seems to have gotten especially bad once Jelgava got promoted to Virsliga. And so he essentially said that it started affecting his personal life, this relationship with ownership, and he just had to make a call, and the call was to very reluctantly step down. He acknowledged, I think there's still a lot of emotion in place, but he acknowledged that he is probably not going to get another coaching gig in Latvia or even overall as an outcome of that. But there is Supernova, so nothing's lost. And
a lot of speculation around that already.
Yeah. Well, he kind of did brush it off though. He was like, "What am I gonna do there? Just coach a Virsliga team?" And Nowitzki's like, "Yeah, that's sort of what most people do in your position." But yeah, there we go. First coaching change for Jelgava, a resignation, not a sacking. Interestingly,
I sort of get that his point about Supernova, because he wasn't just a coach. Really, he was there from the start. He was. I don't think I don't know. Maybe he could be a good coach in other teams as well. But what was so special about this, because he knew the players. He's been growing with them for 7 years now, and it's such a long time, and he's taken them from nothing to everything. And it's as you said, we haven't heard the other side, and I fully understand that. But I do have a feeling that Pēlāns will maybe not regret it, because I just think it is a mistake overall. Because there was a PPK interview with Pēlāns some time ago, and of course I don't know the whole story, but he just seemed the type of person who is this sort of a rich snob who thinks he knows best and that his opinion is always the right one. And I don't understand how he can possibly think that Perkons is a bad coach and bad for the team. I really hope it's not because his son is not really playing as much, because his son is in the team in Jelgava, and he hasn't been getting a lot of minutes this season. But I hope he's at least not that sort of
petty,
subjective I hope that's not the reason, but still, for me, it's so, again, we don't know the whole story, but it just seems so clear that Perkons is not. He's been there from the start. I think it's obvious he's emotionally attached to these players, to the team, and the fact that he's also not been only the coach. He's been doing so much around the club. He's basically a human orchestra. He's doing everything. There's a nice clip from LTV. What he does on match days. He just does everything. Sets up the stands where they sort of sell their kits, shirts, whatever. Yeah, it's just he does so much, and it's so obvious there's passion for the club, and that's so rare, I think, in football as well. Well, people working with that sort of that passion and such a driving force. I just don't understand how it's possible he's a bad coach and bad for the team, and because they've been only progressing and they've started well. For me, it's just unclear, and I don't really know what's going on in Pelan's head. And I hope the interview gets out as soon as possible because, I hope he gets to be interviewed soon because I really need an explanation because it just doesn't make any sense for me.
I'm willing to bet at what that interview is going to sound like, and I'm sure it's going to sound something like, well, I talked to him and I didn't realize he is so sensitive or something to that effect. Because, as you said, Pelans, he runs a number of construction businesses around Jelgava. He's a big employer. He has been detained at one point in some investigation. I don't know if he's been charged with anything or not. As you say, he's a little bit of, that kind of a character. And I just think I'm sure he knew what he was doing exactly. And, Ervin's, he's not he kind of seems like a soft, polite kind of a fella. And the way he speaks as well. So I'm sure it's just going to be something along the lines of, I didn't do anything. That's just how, boys talk, locker room talk or something like that. But, that's just the consequence of bullying and a toxic work environment because, it seems in an interview, Perkons mentioned that he tried to essentially get Jelgava to sack him by requesting a significant raise when they got promoted to Virsliga, and to his surprise, they agreed. So then he stayed, but clearly, it doesn't seem that they think he's a bad coach. I think it's a little bit more interpersonal that's going on there.
Yeah, I just want to say that, as you said, he's a sort of polite person, but I think he can hold his own as well, and I think that ultimately. Of course, Pelans has done well in life, as you said, owner of a few businesses and everything, but it just doesn't seem that he has the best interest for the club because also in that interview with him a while ago, he was also very skeptical of the format of Virsliga, and he was saying things along the lines of, I don't know if the players really need it, the system is not really made for them because the teams can get so many foreign players in, blah, 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 etc., etc. And it just seemed that come on, these boys have worked so hard just to get there, and they finally have their chance to play in Virsliga, the highest there is in Latvia. Everything's so good, and when I heard it, I was like, "Come on, really? What?" Because they were the team to look at because it was actually, I think, for the first time in a while, it was actually a very new team going up to Virsliga, and it seemed like, why is he hindering this? And I just still think that he's the main thing that's trying to sort of break this apart. And well, he's done that. Perkons is gone now. Not really sure. Is Redko going to be the coach now, or?
He isn't at the moment, but he doesn't have the appropriate license to stay in that position for any period of time. So either he gets studying quick if he's eligible, or they need to get a different coach. And I guess we'll now see what is the impact of Perkons as an individual and what is the durability of the system that he or they put in place, and how much of that is to thank for the performance of Jelgava that's been so inspirational. But much like you, I have concerns.
And also, one thing Perkons mentioned in the interview was that another sort of dislike that Pelans took against him was that he's just trying to be famous and get on TV and whatever. But again, he's not. I don't think he's trying. He's just the person he is, and he's a huge personality, and that sort of brings in the interest and the media. and that's why he's on TV, not because he's pushing himself to be there. And I think he's just such a good. He was such a good personality for Virsliga and Latvian football in general. And I think we sort of lost him now because of this, and it's just a huge disappointment. And but ultimately, also I think he did the right choice, because if it was really affecting his personal life and also his mental state, the sort of toxic relationship, then good for him in that sense. But still, it's a shame that it had to come to this, because it was unexpected and everything was going so well for Jelgava, and I was so excited for the team, and now it's just
Well, don't give up on your
sad.
excitement. We'll see. Maybe this is not the end, but just the beginning for both of them. All right, and well, that brings us to football finally. So 2 rounds have been played, and significantly enough, first lap finished. So round 9 was the last round with the first lap. There are, to remind you all, 4 laps in Virsliga, so we're a quarter of the way there. We are not going to talk about every game individually. Instead, we are going to look back at how this first lap unfolded, and we'll mention who did how in rounds 9 and 10. We'll still do goal of the round, but in essence, teams have now moved or are in the beginning of transitioning to grass pitches, which obviously changes the game a little bit. First 2 games have been played. In round 10, RFS hosted Valmiera at LNK Sporta Parks on their beautiful, shiny, brand new grass stadium. And then Jelgava hosted Riga on their grass pitch, which looked surprisingly very dry, despite the weather not being dry at all. And then we'll see who goes where and what's going on. I guess noteworthy to mention that Skonto Stadium is not going to be available to Riga FC until mid-June because of pitch relaying.
And of course, Skonto Stadium is the best stadium in Latvia, pretty much.
The best football stadium, yes.
Yeah.
But then essentially, teams are moving to grass pitches now. I think everyone except Supernova, I think they are the only ones who do not have access to a grass pitch, or I couldn't think of it. And I don't know where Metta is going to play.
Yeah, exactly. Supernova are playing in Salaspils the whole season, and Metta, I think, are also just playing. I think they're only playing in Hansa, because Daugavpils Stadium not available due to the Song and Dance Festival. But maybe I sort of, or am I don't know why I seem to remember them playing in Upestiems, but I don't think that's suitable for Virsliga. So
I don't even know where that is.
Staying in Hansa.
Well, Auda is gonna play some of their games in LNK Sporta Parks on grass, actually. So maybe
interesting.
Metta as well, or maybe what about the old RFS stadium in on the other side of the river in Arcadius Parks?
Good point. Yeah.
It's by the train tracks, and I'm taking that train time to time, and I saw the grass being cut. It's looking very nice. So certainly space there.
It's always been a very good, yeah.
But Supernova is gonna stay on artificial grass in Salaspils, and so everyone's gonna play on grass, and then they're gonna have to go there and play on a pretty mediocre quality artificial pitch, which is probably going to be, well, I mean, it's nothing new. Valmiera used to play just on artificial before their stadium finished renovation, so it's nothing new for Virsliga.
Yeah, but then the whole first lap, as you said, has ended, and some teams have done good, some not so good, and the overall table's looking quite interesting, I'd say. A bit surprising, I guess.
Who is the biggest surprise for you at this point?
At this point, I'd say probably Metta and Jelgava are the biggest surprises, and Valmiera. I expected them to be a bit better. So teams that are just 5th, 6th, and 7 are the biggest surprises for me. What about you?
Valmiera for sure. They are currently occupying 5th spot with 14 points, which is a whole 12 points short of the number 1 position. At this point, I am pretty much ready to write Valmiera off as a serious contender for retaining their Virsliga title. And on the other hand, I think Daugavpils is a bit of a surprise for me. They are in 9th position with only 6 points, tied with Supernova. And just really expected them to do better than this. They started off uneven, but they have picked up since then, and it just seems that they're playing well, but not generating points out of their game. And in my mind, Daugavpils is still a strong team, and I'm just surprised to see them all the way down there. But maybe we should describe the table overall. So we have both Rigas, Riga and RFS in 1 and 2, the only two teams that remain undefeated, Riga with 26 points and RFS with 22 points. They are followed by Liepaja with 17 points and game in hand, then Auda with 15, Valmiera with 14, Jelgava and Metta 11 each, Tukums with 8, and then Daugavpils and Supernova 9 and 10 with 6 points each. And we can see that, there is a little bit of a gap forming between the Riga and RFS and the rest.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that could be kind of predictable. These two teams being the top runners and the most serious title contenders. But and I just realized that also, Daugavpils also a bit surprising, and Supernova as well, because all respective to pre-season, I thought they'd be better because of their squad. And they're in the last place, which is also a bit surprising in that sense. But it's about Valmiera. I just feel interested because they've not been playing necessarily bad. It's just obvious the team is not the team that won the title last year. But I think they're gonna pick up some points a bit, especially on the grass, maybe, but still probably not gonna catch the top two teams. And you said that there seems to be a gap forming between Riga and RFS, but there's still Liepaja that could be closing on just 6 points behind Riga, which is also surprising because they started so bad, but it seems that Liepaja has also started to actually play some good football. And
Liepaja are on a good run. They are undefeated in their 5 games, of which they have 3 wins in a row. So even though, they started off really well, though, by winning over Valmiera. But then they had this patchy spell, and I think it's more that what they're showing on the pitch was so unconvincing that we started to think of them as a bit of a failure. But if you're looking at the table, they're doing really well. They're in 3rd place with game in hand, 16 goals scored, 11 conceded, just really up there, doing good work. Valmiera, on the other hand, I mean, it's so strange to see them in this rut, and then all the rumors about financial issues at the club, despite achieving record-breaking transfer success over the winter, is just bizarre. It's just very strange.
By the way, no, but on that, I saw an article that, what was it? Just a tweet that on Valmiera's year 2022 financial report, it was said that the money from the transfers, specifically Krolis one, hasn't been received yet. Well, that could be the reason why there's these mythical internal problems. But if that's the case, then I guess it makes sense because it's crucial money. But I don't believe Spezia from Syria to be a sort of club to not pay. So,
and besides that, I mean, why should that matter? So Valmiera hadn't been paid. We also know that they're not paying because Metta lodged an appeal to the Latvian Football Federation about not getting money from them for Krolis. And, it's not like they planned their budgetary year with an assumption that they're going to sell X millions worth of players. This is pretty much a first. So then I'm wondering, like, what happened? Did they sign the contract and then, used money for a vacation to the Caribbean? and now they're like, oh well, sorry guys, we can't pay you salary. It's just strange. Like where is the standard, chunk of money that you get to operate the club outside of these special events like transfers?
Yeah, they've really had their ups and downs. Yeah, we just interesting and a bit sad because they were so good last year, but of course the best players went and it makes sense. But yeah, there was this convincing win against Auda, 4-0, which seemed just so easy for them. But then again, yeah, some just very poor results against Supernova, drawing against Daugavpils, and yeah, last two games they played against all the big dogs, Riga and RFS. Against Riga, it was a complete disaster, I think. But as Jurgis said in the press conference, yeah, he sort of took it, well, blame on him own because yeah, he said that it was just a very poor choice of formation. They switched it up to sort of these three center backs with Truders coming in, and just yeah, they hadn't been used to the formation and fell apart. And Riga seemed really convincing, but I guess Valmiera were just bad on the day because against RFS they were actually quite all right. Well, still lost, but
Yeah, we had a message exchange during that game, and I still stand by what I wrote you, that in my mind it was less Valmiera looking good than RFS looking so bad that Valmiera actually looked good.
well, I guess they had Jalisk.
Yeah, Jelisko was the one to see, but other than that, I mean,
Yeah.
RFS were very generous by not only giving a penalty where one was not needed, but
Yeah.
also almost in short order after that, almost scoring an own goal, to keep things interesting.
Yeah, that was weird. I get for Valmiera. Well, yeah, Jelisko was back after Riga game. He had to he was suspended for it, and yeah, it's obvious that he's the glue in the middle of the team. He's probably the most important player in there. But also some players started to look good. I think Fall was good when he sort of joined the attacks and showed his energy. And random Brazilians that are Valmiera not really playing, starting to play a bit. Still not really showing that much, but at least there's something now. And yeah, but this, as you said, RFS was they were just surprisingly poor at that game, and just a lot of silly mistakes. Maybe you could sort of a bit write it off on the switch to the real grass, but the penalty that was given away, Mares, just the ball was going out and he sort of suddenly jumped to it, but reluctantly, and he hit it with his hand. And it just seems for such a defender, he's one of the oldest players in the team, very experienced. You just can't lose your concentration in such a game, in such a simple moment, and yeah, just a bit worrying. I still, what I can say is that RFS, you can see it's a good team. The players are pretty much they played together for years now, and they're not gonna really lose with big results, and they're very sort of stable in defense. But I still think that there's just this something, this I don't know, this mysterious thing X missing this season. Something just not really right. Something not clicking as it should. Because they were close to sort of drawing against Valmiera, and they did drew against Metta as well. And yeah, they are sort of stable, but just not as good as they could and should be. I don't know how to feel about RFS as of yet, but still they're second and still undefeated. So can't take that away, but yeah.
They just seem to lack the fire under their seat for whatever reason. They're very so still yet to concede a goal from play, which 10 rounds in is very impressive. There's been 2 penalties and a free kick, so they're very solid, but just not really aggressive, I guess. They're not being aggressive. They're not hungry. They're not going after their prey. They're just they're like this satiated lion that's in the zoo or something that's just fine because it's being fed, and yeah, it's formidable, but it's not really gonna pounce on you. which is something you really, really need if you're planning to go back to Europe from very early in the qualification stage. Or maybe that's what they're saving it for. But, again, that would be a little bit strange. Shall we maybe go team by team and just see what we think of how they did?
Yeah. So we start with Supernova.
You want to start from the bottom? Yeah, sure. Let's start with Supernova.
I think so. Yeah. So, it's a weird team because on paper their squad is looking very good. A couple of players with national team experience, quite substantial national team experience, and not only national team but even experience in tournaments like the championship in England. It just seems that there's also a bit of a toxic work environment there. They've been not playing as good as they also, I think, should be, considering their squad. Just poor results, not really up for it. It seems like a lack of some energy, also some simple mistakes, and which results in very, very harsh words from their coach, Alexander Skolinko. He's just straight up dissing his players left, right, and center. And it just can't be too good for the players because they're mostly young players, and it's very hard to deal with it. And as we talked, it's a bit surprising that he's still in charge, I think, despite getting a couple of surprising results. I guess again they're starting to play a bit better. Last game, what did they play against? Auda, I think. I guess they had some good moments, but still overall, it's just. I think they're just defense is not good enough. I think that's the main problem. They're missing some a bit of a more experienced player and stable player. I think a consistent one in there. And that's where they really fall apart. They seem to like their goalkeeper line is also quite all right for Virsliga, and even they're not one of them is doing better than the other. It's just something's not good, and I think they need a change, and I think it should be the coach that has to be the change because it seems to be a bit of a stagnation at this point. And what's the point in that? They need to switch up. I think they could play better. They just need a new sort of tactic and vision on their style of play, and only a different coach can bring that. That's my opinion. I also should mention that I think that the club overall is all right. It seems that there's some passion from them, and they seem to want to be there in Virsliga, but it just seems that the coach is not really fully in there. And if he's dissing his players so much, then why keep working with them?
Well, you gotta eat, I guess, is the situation here. I did hear a rumor that this question was posed to the Supernova owner. Why not get rid of Kolinko? And the response was that, but don't really like changing coaches that often. So, I mean, we'll see. If there's a reluctance to make drastic measures from the top, then Kolinko might still hang around for a bit, but eventually time is going to come when Supernova will need to start getting points in order to not get automatically relegated again, which is what happened last season. For me, they are pretty much exactly where I think they should be, other than a couple of surprise victories, one against Valmiera, most noteworthy. They're just kind of a ragtag motley crew of random players, and I don't really see a lot of identity or purpose behind this club. It's not too dissimilar from kind of what I reluctantly observe with Auda as well, but certainly much worse. So 10th place for them makes sense to me. Definitely makes sense. Then Daugavpils, number 9, I already said. That is a bit of a surprise for me, but there they are. 9th position with 6 points, a single win, 3 draws and 6 losses, trailing -8 on goals scored to conceded difference. So really not doing all that well, but playing nice, I think. Definitely have improved.
I completely agree. I think, there's some sort of off occasions, such as the game against RFS. But in general, they're actually playing some nice football. There's some really interesting players to look at, such as Nazirli, Lizunovs, Jaleko, Mukwela starting to pick up. Also, young defender. What was his name? Aizups, I think. I think he's only 18, and I don't remember against which team was it. Maybe even RFS. No, not RF. Maybe sort of a big team, and he was so good in defense. Of course, there's a lot of mistakes as well, but just an interesting team to watch, and playing some nice stuff from time to time as well. And I think that on quality, they just shouldn't be in the 9th place. I think they are better than Tukums, potentially Metta, but they are where they are. And I don't know what they need to do to sort of pick up not only points but the wins, because they just need to win more. There's so much potential in the team.
I think they just really need to start, getting those goals in. I mean, it's as simple as that. Obviously, easier said than done. Their game against Tukums was highly entertaining, and it's not that they were unfortunate to come out with a draw, 3-3, but this is one game they could win, and then there's other teams in their immediate vicinity that they definitely can challenge, and then get a few wins there, shave off a couple of points from. As they did with Riga and Valmiera, and their fortunes will improve dramatically. At this point, this just seems like things are finally in place. They just need to start generating the results.
Yeah, and what a game it was, by the way. Perkons against the Daugavpils.
Oh, it was so fun.
Incredible.
Sadly, the
3-3.
carnival is gone from Daugavpils.
Yeah.
But the players on the pitch put on a show that is vastly superior to any background attractions that we have come to be so fond of. 3-3, Daugavpils leading 2-1 in halftime, Tukums pulling it back with some. It was very much an open, dynamic, back and forth game. Super fun to watch.
Yeah, really good, really good. Also, a weird mistake by Wilkos, Tukums goalkeeper. Yeah, the match had everything pretty much.
Yeah.
And speaking of this game, we can move on to Tukums, who are sitting in the 8th position, and I think for them this is actually quite optimal. I think they've done well considering their resources at the moment. I think this is quite an appropriate place for them. Everything about Tukums, I think it just makes sense for me, because they are not a bad team. Also, a lot of young players, but not as young as like Metta and Jelgava, but a bit more experienced. But these sort of players who can't really find a place in Latvian football, I guess, in a bigger team or whatever. I think there's a couple of them. For example, Stuglis, Samailovs, and so they've all gone to Tukums, and I think there's a good atmosphere in the team. I think the coach is also quite young and sort of gets these players, and somehow they make some chemistry, and from time to time play some nice stuff against big teams. They struggle a bit, but try to hold their own. Also, a couple of very interesting players. I think the main one being Auda Stepanovic, who's on loan from RFS. Already scored 5 goals. Only 18 years old. This sort of Lithuanian wonder kid, I think he's the youngest player to ever play for the Lithuanian, I think, A-Liga, it's called, I think.
Yeah.
Well, basically the Lithuanian highest league. I think he's the record holder for the youngest player to ever play. So definitely some potential and some interesting facts about him and the team. And I think they've done all right with that they have, and the 8th position is, I think, good for them, and I think they can maybe play even better. And I liked when they played the sort of open football, which they did against Daugavpils, because it was very watchable, and there's definitely players with skills. As I said, Stepanovic, Samailovs has some flair about him. I think they're missing like a good striker. That's, I think, what they're missing. But also against Auda, surprisingly, there were these young guys coming in and somehow scored goals. And I'd say overall positive outlook on Tukums.
Yeah, I agree. They seem to be where they, should be, given the team and how much they lost player-wise compared to last season. So no real surprises there. A couple of maybe additional fun facts about Stepanovic is to not only is he the youngest debutant in A-Liga, he is 18 years old now, but on top of that, he already has experience of playing for Genoa U18 squad and playing in Croatia. So, I mean, wow. I almost hope that, especially given the RFS troubles on the right flank, where I mean nominally we're supposed to see the magic of Yanis Ikaunieks, but not only is the magic missing now, Ikaunieks himself is missing. I mean, it would be good to see Stepanovic be recalled and integrated in RFS in time for European games. That would be great to see.
Yeah. I think there's a chance he might be called back. Don't really think he's going to be called back specifically for the European games. I think Ikaunieks is probably going to be back and playing there, but I think he could get the call up.
As long as he keeps playing. Like we don't need such an exciting player to warm the lovely new bench in LNK Sporto Parks, because what he's showing now is fantastic.
Yeah. So for that sake, he can stay in Tukums and keep showing what he's got. Yeah.
For sure. Then we have Metta, who are in 7th place. Had some exciting stretches of play, then had some losses, had some draws. The most recent one noteworthy against RFS in round 9, and a 1-1 draw against Liepaja the following week in round 10. Overall, looking good, not looking particularly stable, but I mean, it is a team of youngsters, and I think it's kind of a pretty decent achievement what they're showing now. And if they finish the season around about where they are, it's not going to be a disappointment to anyone.
Yeah, I think there's potential to be even better. As you said, they're a team of youngsters, but this season I think they've got some more experienced players in. Well, there really is some, basically. Fyodorovs and Shibas. Can't think if there's anyone else. But for Metta, that seemed to be a team that in the recent years that showed that, I don't know, I think there was the progress was gone from them. I think they were, again, stagnating a bit for years. And this year it seems to be turned around, and there's, again, some sort of passion, freshness from them, some flair. And it's good to see. It's good to see. Some players also sort of coming out of their shelves and starting to show some good football. I think Reitis is a noteworthy mention. I think he springs to mind the most. I also, the foreign players, Korea and So, I think are really good. Wouldn't be surprised if they're gone in the mid-season. But got some good results. I think that's the main thing, that they can show teeth against the big teams and not losing like 6-0 and something like that. I guess they did against Riga. 4-0, I think it was, right?
Yeah.
But still, they didn't play particularly bad. It was just a very good game for Riga. And I think there's potential for Metta to fight for this top of the bottom spot, namely 6th place.
Well, but it's going to be a tough fight, because at the moment in place number 6 is FS Jelgava. They're even on points with Metta, but it should be mentioned that Metta, of course, still has a game in hand, same as Liepaja, the first round game that was cancelled due to bad weather. Well, not cancelled, delayed. But Jelgava is sitting in the 6th position, 3 wins, 2 draws, and 5 losses. And all I have to say is, wow, it does not feel like they only won 3 games. I'll tell you that. It feels like they've been winning at least half of everything. And maybe that's because some of their losses, notably the very first game against Riga, felt like a win, and some of their draws felt like a win. But you don't get points for things that feel like something else. So they are with 11 points in the 6th place. But we'll see how things go now that Perkons is gone. But at least up to this point, certainly a fairy tale story.
well, I think you know that I really like Jelgava and especially what they've done and the whole story, and it's just very appealing. And yeah, they, as you said, some results who weren't even theoretically that good results felt like a win, and they won the games that they needed to against Metta and Daugavpils, Supernova, and yeah, managed the draw against Auda, where they realistically could have won as well. And yeah, and even though they've started surprisingly well, especially for a newly promoted team, they could have done even better, I think. And now it's just, yeah, because of the departure of Perkons, I am starting to feel a bit. I hope they still do good, and I think they probably will, but still, a huge part of this excitement for Jelgava was because of Perkons as well. And now that he's gone, of course, I will still root for the team, but it just feels like something's missing, and it's not right, and it's not how it should have been. And yeah, I just hope that at the end of the season they haven't gone downhill, and all I have to think about is well, what could have been if Perkons didn't leave. And yeah, but I still all the best to Jelgava. I hope they do good, and I'm so excited, as you said, also about like the formations they use. They sort of changed up game by game, and also the fact that they can really rotate the players so much and still sort of be consistent is so nice and fun to see. And there's a lot of exciting players there as well. And for Oscar Schubens, for example, always it seems like the main man. And yeah, I just hope they keep this up. And yeah, I hope they don't go below the 8th, 7th place.
And this will be a very impressive result for their first season in Virsliga with this squad and in this configuration. They drew Tukums 2-2 in 9th round. Then they met Riga again in 10th round, and they lost, but still managed to rattle some nerves there at one point. They lost 1-3. So yeah, I guess it's we're just keeping our fingers crossed, and but definitely exceeding my expectations, and I think expectations of most people who who are predicting where teams will be at the beginning of season.
Exactly, yeah. I think that was a point I wanted to mention, because it's not necessarily because they're a newly promoted team. Auda was also a newly promoted team last year, but there were just high expectations because of the obvious budget that was put into them, etc. But now it's just, yeah, because of the expectations, it's particularly sweet for them. So fair play to them.
That actually, I'm glad you brought Auda up, because I feel like these three teams, Auda promoted last season, Supernova promoted last season, Jelgava promoted this season. It's almost like Auda and Supernova are the two extreme ends of what a newly promoted team could do. And then Jelgava is this third way. And Auda obviously being that they just, not to be too harsh, but they just sold out. The team that started last year's Virsliga had pretty much no relationship to the team that got promoted. Supernova last season refused to sign any players that are not of their academy, and just face-flopped so hard that they went right down to the division below. And Jelgava, they just did things differently. We'll see how much of that is down to a one-man factor, or maybe just their system is superior. Time will tell. But I mean, clearly they managed to retain the essence of the club without just becoming something they weren't. And equally, they're successful. They're moderately successful, mid-table. It's just great to see. And they're just a very sympathetic team to follow.
Yeah. So we move on to the big five, I guess, of Virsliga. And currently in the 5th spot is Valmiera, last year's champions. And for them, I think we already talked quite a lot about Valmiera, but the overall feeling is that obviously their squad is not comparable to their last season squad, which was just amazing, to put it simply, amazing. But still, I think they could have done better as well. A bit unfortunate at times, but also there's this sort of all these behind the scenes things, and And their coach is a huge factor, Jurgis Kants, which is a very charismatic one. And the overall feeling is that it's just the squad is just not as good, simply put. I think you can still see that what they're trying to do and how they're trying to play. And I think if you put the old players back in the squad, they're still probably, if not at the top of the table, that at least second. And I think it's just down to the fact that the players are just not good enough. They're not bad as well. Yeah, there's just a lot of work to do. And I think by the end of the season, they're probably going to be in top 4, but not really sure who then doesn't get in. But I have a feeling that, well, if suddenly all doesn't fall apart because of these financial issues or whatever, but I think that in the long term, they will be fine. But just a lot of action around them. The fact that they're not playing as well, and then Khan saying these confident comments, and then switching it up, etc. And it's just a bit too messy.
Well, top 4 is just 1 point away.
Yeah.
So they're with 14 points. Auda just above them is with 15. So not something that's not attainable. But do you think they still have any chance of retaining their title this year?
I don't think so. I think they can understand where they're lacking and adapt and actually play good, but I don't see Riga like suddenly being bad and losing other games, which should be done if Valmiera wanted to be up there at the end of the season. And I think Riga is just stable enough, and then there's still RFS, who, even though not really showing what we want to see, are still up there and getting the results in, and they have some like the loaned options to bring back, and the summer transfer window as well. And I think ultimately, I don't think there's any chance for Almere to pull this back, but I'll leave some spot just purely because Kans somehow manages to surprise, and it's just hard to tell with Valmiera. But I don't think realistically it should be done. But if they do, oh my god, I don't know. Give Kans everything if he manages to do this.
I mean, I think at this point it's probably certain to ascertain that we will not have a new champion at the end of this season. And with Valmiera out of the race, I mean, it's probably going to go between the two Riga teams.
Yeah. Or Liepaja.
Maybe next
not.
season, but probably not, no. They're fun, but they seem to lack this the necessary degree of maturity or something like that.
I agree.
To be a champion squad. But I will admit I'm terrified of the Champions League qualifiers where Valmiera is supposed to represent us.
Yeah, that's the...
RFS came so close last season, and before that Riga came so close a few years back, and just Valmiera is looking so terrible at the moment that it's just why did it have to be? Why would they win the title and then just weaken themselves so significantly that they're scraping the bottom of top 5 after 10 games the next season? This is just seems like very, very poor management decisions went into that process.
But that also, they are a team that's sort of their idea is to build these players and then sell, and I get that, but it's just, I think they just got rid of too much players, and it terrifies me as well, but I hope they pull something back by then.
Well, or at least let it be like a band-aid.
Yeah.
Just get it off quickly and move on to the Conference League. Above them is Riga B, Auda, number 4 position, 15 points. Auda also not where it would not be expected at the beginning of season.
I guess, well, you said not where they wouldn't be expected, so they are where they would be expected.
Yeah, it's beginning to grow on me in terms of how they play. This weird kind of a Valakari tiki-taka that Auda is showing is...
Yeah, well, I guess in terms of placement, I do agree, but in terms of football they're showing, I think they are actually too low. I think they are better than Liepaja, and I think they can also sort of battle with RFS. It's just, I think it's very obvious that they're just lacking this end product, but the way they keep the ball and how they play with the ball, that's just, I think maybe Riga is just the other team better than them, but with the ball, I think Auda is, well, the best or the second best in league, because even the last two games, as much as I saw, is just they're starting to even do these Barcelona type of stuff, and just 1-2 in the box, and I think they've sort of found their, their main squad and their chemistry and everything. It's just the goal scoring that's lacking. Even the last game, Piteo, so many chances and just couldn't score. But well, they've at least started to score something and winning. I think it's two nils in a row for them, right? And yeah, it just seems that they're starting to be consistent, which is really good for them. And yeah, just a lot of interesting players and some players that I wouldn't even expect to be that good. For example, last season, Brett Schneider, the German left back, was sort of a rotation player. This season, he's a starter and he's, well, surprisingly good. I didn't know he was that good. Well, he's not the only one, but there's also, yeah, Savelyev's being really good, the Limbashevs, Isayevs. Their defense is very strong, goalkeeper line as well. And I think there's so much more potential for them. I also like their coach, Valakari. I think he's an interesting one. And yeah, I think they could be higher. And if they figure out how to actually score their chances and score more, I think it's a real threat, because if before the season I was feeling like, oh, why did they win the cup? Why are Auda in the Conference League qualification? Then now I actually feel quite good about it, and I think it's going to be very interesting to watch them. I don't think they'll get far, but and it's an interesting team to at least watch, because the way they keep the ball and some of their passing play is very impressive for Virsliga.
I mean, they do start in second round of qualifiers, so if they get a lucky draw, they might make it to third and tiki-taka their way to the qualification round, and then there's group stage right there. So maybe. But yeah, it's just they have their main forward Diane is from was it Cameroon?
I think it
Senegal.
I think Cameroon. Yeah,
he's very interesting, but just currently very poor at actually scoring goals.
Yeah.
So once that bit is fixed, I think Auda is going to be a force to reckon with, and I certainly see them finishing at least number 3 at the end of the season with the kind of game quality that they're showing.
Yeah, it's actually also interesting, because I just wouldn't have expected, even though they're playing good, this, as you said, Riga B team status to be that good, but well, fair play to them. And it's interesting. Also interesting that they're playing some games at LNK, because they should be under the sort of Riga wing and playing in Skonto, but
last year Riga and RFS made this deal where RFS played Conference League group stage games at Skonto.
Yeah,
so
true, of course. Yeah.
Maybe the two clubs are becoming a little bit closer in inter-club relationships as well.
Of course,
so, yeah. Which is good.
Of course, yeah. I only love to see that, because I think that's just for the greater good, because they're now representing Latvia, and Riga has nothing to lose, only to gain from giving in the stadium. And so yeah, that's all good and nice to see.
And then Liepaja in number 3. To me, a pleasant surprise given how they started, and of course, again, still game in hand, so potentially at 20 points, but realistically 17 points at the moment. And I mean, we can't write Metta off, so maybe they'll just draw, and then, Liepaja is sitting with 18. But yeah, started off really rocky, but have now found not quite style yet, I think, but they have cohesion, and they are, unlike RFS, very aggressive going forward, and that is earning them goals. I don't know to what extent this achievement is because of Mankenda and his 10 friends, or as a team effort, but I mean, time will tell where we stand with that as well. But yeah, definitely Liepaja looking better than I would have expected, and even better than one would think watching them play.
Yeah, exactly. Just yeah, as you said, the start was just weird, and just hard to understand what are the players doing, what is the team doing. But I guess Pertti is another coach who you should not really underestimate, because he too seems to sort of maybe eventually and taking longer than expected, but still proving people wrong a bit. And I guess there's still no specific style, but at least there's something, and at least there's not so many silly mistakes anymore, and there's actually some sort of chemistry starting to build, I think. And I think it really helped that T. Diamondbacks was not in the squad at the start of the season, and he's rejoined them, and their captain, and he seems to be a huge part of the team as well. Really, just a solid, stable player, and but it's interesting to see what's really the long run here, because they are, I'd say, surprisingly high. I don't know how they managed 5 wins out of their 9 games, but they are there, and it's a weird one because I still don't look at them as a top 3 team, which they are currently, but there's already been like a lap played, and I sort of see this possibility of me just still thinking that it's Liepaja. They're like not bad, but also not good, and then they just keep doing this the whole season, and they actually end up in the 3rd place at the end of the season, and I'll be like, how did that happen? So interesting, just interesting to see what happens with them, and where actually Pertti can take them, and because I think there is some quality in the players, and if they actually utilize it, who knows what can happen. I still think Auda is a better team, but it's really hard to say with Liepaja.
I am excited for Liepaja, not just because I really like the city, but the news coming out from the veil of the club indicates that maybe they're reconciling with their academy, and Pertti made his opinions and experiences of that very clear in an interview, and that Liepaja was making use of domestic players quite a lot while he was there, and many of the players we see and enjoy now made their way through Liepaja. So if they manage to sort out this foundation that's been lacking and kind of shaky for the past couple of years, and complement that with their foreign players under leadership of coaches as experienced as Pertti, I mean, Liepaja might become a very, very dangerous team. Will they be dangerous enough to challenge the 2 Riga top teams? Unclear. But seeing them in 3rd, not as surprised, I think, and certainly something that we should maybe start getting used to, especially seeing that Valmiera is very much on this downhill spiral.
Yeah, and of course, I think what's missing for Liepaja is, it's hard to tell if he's missing, but because he's been missing for some time but just this, I think it would be a very important player, Martin Stigurs, who's been unfortunately for the 2nd season just out because of ACL injury. But first of all, he's a Liepaja grown player, so he would be sort of ticking this box off, and then he's also a very good player and a very unusual player for Latvia. And I just had to see, and if he was in the squad, I would be just no questions about why they're in 3rd. All makes sense, and but that's just sort of an off-topic note a bit.
Just above them, well, all right, not just above them, quite a bit above them, a whole 5 points above, sits RFS with 22 points, 6 wins and 4 draws, no losses, 15 goals scored, 3 goals conceded, 2 off penalty, 1 a free kick, really showing remarkable defensive quality. But to me, is still somewhat disappointing. I would have expected / wanted them to be in the 1st place now, but I mean, realistically, they only have themselves to blame for not being there. RFS showing very uneven, I think even toothless play a lot of the time, not conceding anything, but equally, as we already discussed on this episode, not showing kind of the aggression that one would want to see. They're just very, very chill.
Yeah, I think that's all pretty much sums it up, that they're a very good team, and you can see that so many players have been working or playing together for a while now, and their defense is very solid, and Liepaja Jagodinskis is a center back partnership that it wouldn't take only Virsliga players to get past you, but I'd say some higher level players as well. But yeah, it just seems that there's a bit of a lack of motivation and not really that spirit anymore. I think maybe some players are just have been at RFS for too long. For example, Emerson. He's still a good player, but this season he's not really the player he usually is. Same, I guess, with Dilic, should be doing better. But still, because they have this foundation and because they are, just a solid, stable team, they still manage to get these results and sit in the second place. So in that sense, it's all good. But just something missing. And I think it is this fighting spirit that you said, which some players are showing. But I think it's usually actually the newer players. For example, Markiev, a real fighter and playing good. And these players who've been there for a longer time, such as Emerson, for example, not really that spirit anymore. And
I can't agree on Emerson. I think he didn't have a good game against Valmiera, but before that, I think I would actually put him in the basket with those who are showing such spirit alongside maybe Lipuschek and. There we go. It's not a big bunch. Jagodinskis, he's certainly there as well. Yeah. So defenders, come on. They're just probably bored sitting at the back there while forwards are unable to convert. But I was thinking just while listening to you, another thing to mention about RFS is their transfer policy. So they are supposed to be a big club. I understand that they are now trying to become financially self-sufficient, at least to as much of a degree as they can. But look at their signings. Like, they're not signing any big names at all. It's either someone who has played for Riga FC a bunch of years back, or these, not to dismiss anyone, but kind of random players from random places that haven't really showed anything yet that would be of the level necessary to take RFS to the next stage. And Riga are doing that, maybe to an excess. Would really love to see something in between. They have the money, like get some experienced players who maybe can take the entire Virsliga up a notch.
Yeah, and that's a good point as well, because they're signing like a Markiev who's played in Virsliga, and of course he's a good player and now starting, but maybe they are lacking some sort of bigger signing, at least, because as they did with, for example, Shinkovic, he was a huge player, huge figure, not only in RFS but the whole Virsliga, and maybe they need something like that, because they will always be a good team, but I don't think they can really fight for the title like this. They need to do something, and maybe it's a signing, and I'm sure they will think of something in the mid-season transfer window, because I think they also see that they need something. But who knows what happens with them. They're gonna be a solid and an alright team, and the top 3 I think is guaranteed for them. But I think they should do better.
Yeah, and that takes us to Riga FC, currently on top. 8 wins, 2 draws, also no losses. A little bit shakier defense, but a vastly superior attack. 25 goals scored, 4 conceded, and 26 points, 4 clear of RFS, and 9 clear of third place Liepaja. Riga are outperforming my expectations for sure. I obviously expected them to spend lots of money and essentially replace most of their squad, but I also expected them to succumb to this Riga symptom that haunted Riga teams for the past few seasons, where they have all these players but are just unable to show anything for it. And this year it's not that at all. Tomas Stipic, there's been some questionable games, but results speak for themselves. Riga is cruising and they are dominating.
Yeah, well, I don't know how can you say shaky defense. 4 goals conceded, only one more than RFS. Well, who is it is the best defense, but well, I see what you mean by shaky, but well, they still hold their own, and 25 goal score, that's quite insane. And yeah, just a very good team. Just everything's just good for them. They're set. They're fine. They're quite likely going to be the champions. And yeah, and also no weak spots. And yeah, I really like what they've done this year. They haven't really made changed the whole team up. They've only brought in pretty much Jojic and Guena and Regja. And okay, a couple of Auda players, but they're not really new signings because they've been with Stipic and sort of around Riga either way. And yeah, so they've sort of changed up what they're doing, and I think I hope at least, it seems that they are finally just sticking to one coach for the whole season, unless something switches up. But I think
I mean,
it's quite
we
obvious.
are only a quarter in, so.
Of course, yeah, but I think it's quite obvious that Stipic is really a man for the job. And yeah, it seems that he's passionate for the players, for the club. Well, I guess he can be the type of coach who shows that everywhere he goes. But still, it's just, yeah, they're just playing like a solid, I don't know, Danish league team. Maybe, I don't know which team to compare to, but they're just very, very solid, good with the ball. Of course, there's the occasional mistakes, but yeah, they have their solid starting lineup, which is, I think, at this point very clear. They sort of rejuvenated Marko Regja, Latvian striker, and is now joint top scorer of the league. Yeah, it just all seems to be doing well, and at points it seems that it could. You said that they've outperformed expectations, which I get, but at some points it seems that they could be doing even better. Also, some sort of not always that good at finishing their chances, considering how much they actually have. They're dominating in possession and in terms of attacks, and yeah, I'm really waiting for the next Riga derby because I hope there's no early red cards and a weird game, which it was the first time around, and it will really show what's what, who's who, and yeah, I think if they, I may be a bit of a bold prediction, but I think if they do win this second Riga derby, I think they're pretty much champions. Well, it depends how confidently they do that, and of course there's still the transfer window, but still, it's just hard for me to see where could they go wrong, because they're probably not likely to, I don't know, let any of the important players go, and the important players are, well, very consistent, surprisingly consistent, and yeah, they just look really good. And if you also consider Stipic, who's a coach who can be a great motivator, then I'm very excited for the Conference League playoffs, and it's a shame that it's only Conference League playoffs, because I'm confident if it was Champions League, they'd be in group tournament easy.
Yeah, and that is lap 1 of Virsliga 2023. Interesting. So far, the table is settling a little bit now, as we can see. The dynamism of early rounds is kind of evening out, but there's still quite a bit of intrigue. And that brings us to the final bit of business that we have to do, which is goal of the round. We talked about it a bit beforehand, and this hasn't happened since round 1, but we only had one person in mind, and one person only, and this person is the person who is sharing the top scorer's spot with Marko Regja, and that is Faust Stepanavičius, the 18-year-old Lithuanian currently playing for Tukums. We thought that his goal against Jelgava was fantastic. So if you want to see that, either watch the replay or hit us up on Twitter at LVFootball_show, and we'll upload a video for that. But congratulations and very, very well done.
Yeah, just amazingly from the left side, cuts in on the right, outside the box, shot far corner. And yeah, just Sturic, Jelgava's goalkeeper, just rooted to the spot. I think he thought the ball is either going out, or if it's going in, then what's the point of jumping? Because it went up and down and just perfect placement, and yeah, insane.
No chance.
Very good
no
from
chance
him.
whatsoever.
No, yeah, and yeah, well, interesting player. He also scored an incredible, I'd say a very good goal last game as well against Daugavpils. Sort of random skills in the box and somehow got a shot off and just wrong-footed the keeper. And yeah, hope there's more to come from him. And congratulations and keep it up, hosts.
And since Virsliga is still in this crazy schedule of just non-stop matches, we will do next episode again as a review of the next 2 rounds, which are 11 and 12. And then we will see you then in about a week's time. Thank you for listening.